Hello, I'm Sunny Goldberg, and welcome to Know Your Neighbors. I am so excited about today. I woke up this morning very excited. Favorite show, sitting here with the two librarians from Mamaroneck, Miss Susan Riley and Laura Eckley from Larchmont Library. If you don't know them now, since we've been doing this show for about 3 years and the holiday show, you must know these ladies. We have so many books to talk about. I'm going to throw this right on to you, Laura, because, you know, we could do this for an hour.
That's right. But we have a lot of books to talk about. So I'm going to start with a really fun book. A lot of people read last year A Man Called Ove, which was a very popular book. This is sort of, I would call it a female British version of that book. It's called Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. And this is a first novel. Again, as I said, it's British, and it's about a young woman who's sort of struggling in her life, a little bit stuck, has a very organized life, and then something happens. She makes a friend, she helps a neighbor, and it's life-changing. It's just a wonderful, just a great story and a wonderful book.
I had forgot to mention, I was going to tell everybody, I found this little quote. People don't just judge books by their covers, they judge people by their books, but there's no shame in indulgent reading, especially not during the summer. So if you don't think it's the most literary kind of thing and you really enjoy it, so be it. Correct?
I agree. I agree.
So that sounds great.
It's a great fun book. You should indulge in this book.
Okay.
The book I want to tell you about next is one called Peace of the World by Christina Baker Klein. Now, a lot of people know Christina Baker Klein because she wrote the bestseller Orphan Train about 2 years ago.
We made that recommendation. It was
a lot
terrific.
of fun. Great book. Well, Peace of the World takes place in rural Maine, and it features Christina Olson, whose name you might remember because she is the character in Christina's World, the famous painting by Andrew Wyeth.
Yes.
So this book is about, she is a real, she comes to life in this book, and it's fictionalized, so it's not the truth, but it's a wonderful portrayal of this woman who was a little odd, very, very smart, but she becomes hard and reclusive due to events in her life. It's a very, very good book, and I think everyone will just really enjoy it.
Okay. And what else?
And then the next one is called The Original Ginny Moon. Now this is a real departure from the types of books that I read. This is the kind of a book that will really appeal to people who liked that book, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon.
And the play. I saw the play and read the book.
I didn't see the play.
Terrific.
The book was fabulous. Ginny Moon is a 14-year-old girl who has been adopted, and she is on the spectrum, and she has a lot of issues. Primarily is her stubbornness. She keeps running away. She is looking for her doll baby. And nobody seems to know what her doll baby is. They think it's a doll, but it's really her sister, who she hid in a suitcase when the police arrested her mother. So, Original Ginny Moon will really tug your heartstrings, and it's well worth your read.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
3 I'm going to do.
So the next book, it has a great title. It's called No One Is Coming to Save Us by Stephanie Powell Watts. This is another first novel. It was just picked last week at the American Library Association's national meeting as the very first ALA Book Club Central selection, which means that ALA is now starting to make recommendations to book clubs, and this is their very first pick. This is a retelling of The Great Gatsby in the contemporary South.
You love retellings.
I love retellings. You know it. I'm always recommending retellings. But I like a story, I just want to read it over and over again. And I love The Great Gatsby. I've read it so many times. So it was a pleasure to read this story being retold in the American South. And the protagonist is an African American, as you know, and obviously his whole family and his community. He's made good in the world, and he goes back home to North Carolina, and he tries to woo his childhood love back. She, however, is remarried, And his return to this community just has incredible ripples and waves, and it makes everyone really think about where they are in their life and where they thought they would be and whether or not they're happy. It's a
When
wonderful
does it take
book.
place? Is it contemporary
It's contemporary,
times?
yes.
Oh,
It's
how
now.
interesting.
Yeah.
How interesting.
Interesting when you said ripples. Reminds me of the one I want to talk about, Hillbilly Elegy, J.D. Vance, and it's been on the bestseller list for a very long time. I read it because I was kind of interested, not just the politics, but how you learn to talk to all different parts of the country, which is what I think it was billed as, this ability when we're a divided nation like we have been. How can we talk to one another? And so you see this young man's life, and you see where he grows up, and it's so different than anything you can imagine. Even I'm from the Midwest; it was quite different for me, and how he takes a hold of his life and uses his grandparents and all of these people, and comes up with a way to enhance his life in a really fabulous way. It's a great read. I highly recommend it. Also a good book club book.
This was one of my favorite books last year,
Yeah.
and I read it in one straight shot.
I did
sat
too.
down. We all read it straight through.
I didn't stop.
It's so readable.
It's not a big book either.
It's just a great, great story.
Yeah.
One of the things that I liked about that book in particular is that it's not preachy. You know, it's
Right.
not, you have to do this to pull yourself out of poverty sort of a book.
That's true.
It's his experience and the way that he joined the Marines, and he ended up going to Yale Law School.
Right.
You know, I mean,
And
really
the fact
wonderful.
is, he would have never been able to go to college
Right.
without the military, which was
That's right.
very
That's right.
interesting.
Yes.
And I recently read that it was at Yale, where he was in law school, that he met Amy Chua, who wrote the Tiger Mother book, and that she really mentored him and encouraged him to write this story and tell the story of his life. So that was a very interesting thing
Wow.
to hear.
It was.
So I have another, somewhat similar in the same vein, nonfiction book that I also read almost completely straight through, although it was a little denser. I had to take a couple of breaks. This book is by David Grann, who's actually local. It's called Killers of the Flower Moon: The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI.
Local, meaning he's a Westchester person?
He's actually in the Larchmont Mamaroneck community.
Wow.
He came and spoke at the Larchmont Library in June. He's a wonderful, wonderful speaker. He talked all about the research that he did for this book. He's a writer for The New Yorker, and he did just an incredible amount of research to tell this story. This is the story of the murders that happened in the 1920s and 30s of the Osage tribe. They had mineral rights on their reservation, and they were very wealthy. There was oil there, and then they started to die. There were 24 murders. One family in particular is the focus of his story, and how just as the FBI was starting, this became their first homicide investigation.
Wow.
And it's truly a horrific story. You can't say that it's a wonderful thing to read, but it's so wonderfully researched and put together. It's
So it's
quite a
important
remarkable work that
Right.
this was put together, and it's a terrible story, but it's intriguing. You can't believe that what you're reading is true. It's remarkable.
Huh.
And it's an important piece of history. You know, that these people were, really
And
treated
how much fun
terribly.
to be a local person.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? Wow.
Okay. Well, as everybody who looks at me knows, I'm of Irish heritage. I mean, that's you just have to look at my face to know that. And one of the books that I read is called Saints for All Occasion. Now,
That was
Sunny, you were asking about
I
that
did,
book.
because it was suggested on the Departures
Yes,
book
yes,
list, which
yes.
I couldn't get over. Yeah.
Okay, this book is about a woman named Nora, who's 21, and her younger sister, Teresa, who is 17 years old. And there is basically nothing for them in Ireland at the time. Nora is engaged to a young man named Charlie, and Charlie is not the first male in the family, so he does not inherit the family farm. So Charlie goes off to Boston, and about a year later,
Like a lot of Irishmen.
Yes, and Nora follows, bringing her younger sister Teresa. And Nora is a reserved sort of a person. She keeps her thoughts to herself. She's very aware of what she has to do and where her place is in society. Whereas Teresa is beautiful and gregarious and wants to have fun, and unfortunately that leads to a very bad situation for Teresa, as you can imagine. But the ending of the story is very different than what you would expect from the prelude.
That's fun.
So I hope that you'll enjoy this book. It's just a fabulous book, and book clubs all over the country are recommending it.
And she also wrote Commencement. Is that correct?
I believe
that was
so.
a very popular book that was out a
Very
few years
popular.
ago. So I have two memoirs to talk about. They're very, very different. The first one is David Sedaris's Theft by Finding, Diaries from 1977 through 2002. So for those of you who have not read David Sedaris or heard him on NPR,
He is so good.
He's wonderful.
Extraordinarily funny, smart,
brilliant.
interesting, an amazing writer who's written many memoirs.
Some of them are very self-deprecating,
They are.
which are so fun.
They are. He's so funny. I have had the pleasure of hearing him read and speak. I saw him up in Connecticut a few years ago, and he read excerpts from his diaries. He's kept diaries his entire life. And what's great about
There's
this...
a great thing on him in the New Yorker.
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh,
right now.
I haven't read
Just
it.
like, I'm catching up because I've been, so I can't swear to you which one, but it was really
have to
good
read
with
that.
him and his partner. It was really wonderful.
So this is a very dense book. What's nice about it is that you don't have to read the whole thing. You can just dip in and out at any point in time and read sections from David Sedaris's diary. It's very, very funny. It's very interesting.
He's got a great
It's really
sense of
nice,
humor.
Great sense of humor. It's a nice little inner look at David Sedaris if you're a fan. The other memoir is by Amy Silverstein. It's called My Glory Was I Had Such Friends. This is a memoir of a woman who had a heart transplant, and 26 years later, the heart fails. She needs another transplant. Wow. Spoiler alert, she gets it. The story is of all of the women in her life that support her while she's waiting for her second heart. She has 9 friends that she writes about from all different stages of her life, from childhood through the present, who come with her. She has to go to California to wait for a second heart, and how they all care for her, share stories with her, support her, and it's just a beautiful commentary on the friendship of women.
It is a known fact that girlfriends and having that support system is very healthy. It helps you, really scientifically, statistically, it does help you in health.
It does.
I've heard that. Yeah. Well, I have a complete departure. This is like a trashy, fun novel, and it's called The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I want you to picture a blonde Elizabeth Taylor, okay?
Okay.
So, classic film actress who remarries and remarries and remarries. Now, you would think, all right, this is a woman who's in love with love, right? No. Evelyn Hugo is very calculating. You know, she will marry a man because it will promote the movie that's coming out that they're both starring in or whatever. But in real life, well, not in real life, in this story, they're really, out of those 7 husbands, there's really only 2 people that she loves, you know. So now she's an old woman, and she has chosen a relatively unknown reporter to tell her story, her life story. And the surprise in the novel is why she picks this particular woman reporter.
So when you're on the beach, should you cover the...
The cover is a little racy.
Okay. But we all said, come on, just read it
It's
for
a
fun.
lot
Oh.
of fun. It's a great book. I gave this book to my mother, and she's been passing it around to all of her friends. They're all loving it.
Now that's
Yeah.
great.
That's a recommendation.
All right, you guys, we're halfway there, so come on.
Okay. The next one is quite a title. Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows.
Are you going to pass that to your mother?
My mother said to me, oh, please send me that one.
Okay. We gotta maybe we'll bring her mother on the show
Oh,
next
my
time.
mother would be so thrilled, really, really. But this is a book that I picked up at BEA, and everybody was recommending it to me. And I said, wow, you know, I feel a little funny.
Do people know BEI? Do they know what that is?
Book Expo America.
Which I love because
It's like
she
a
brings,
publishers conference,
Yeah.
and it's fabulous. We get all kinds of advanced readers.
Ah.
So in this book, Nikki and her sister Mindy are daughters of Sikh Indian immigrants in London. Now, Nikki has just dropped out of law school, and she's taken a job bartending.
Oh, her parents must love
Her parents are not happy about this at all. Her sister Mindy is a nurse, and her sister Mindy has very traditional values, and she wants to have her family help her find a husband. Okay.
Tradition.
Yeah, very traditional. But Nikki is kind of floundering, and in order to make more money, in order to kind of develop a real career, she answers an ad to be a creative writing teacher to other Indian women. And the first day of class, she shows up and she finds out these women can't write at all. They're completely illiterate. But what they really want is to tell stories.
To socialize.
To socialize. Well,
that's
to
neat.
tell their stories and have them compiled. And the stories that they want to tell are very erotic stories. So
Okay.
this is a wonderful book. Boy,
Another
it
one
keeps
we
you
have to-
turning the
another one we have
pages.
to hide the
The
cover.
funny
Put a
thing
book
is,
cover. Yes.
the funny thing is, I read this book in Mexico on vacation, and I said to my husband, "Oh, you have to read this. It's very funny." And he said, "I don't know if I want to carry this around."
That's exactly right.
And everybody looking at me a little differently. They refer to certain sexual organs as different types of vegetables. So
Okay.
it's very
all right.
humorous.
On that note, do you have
Yes.
something to top that?
Yes.
Any other?
Oh,
I think you have one more.
I have
right?
one more.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
very different. It's called
very different, it
Spoonbenders.
sounds like.
Spoonbenders. Okay, I'm not usually one for kind of magical realism or fantasy types of things, but this one really piqued my interest. And it's about a family. The last name is Telemachus. And Teddy Telemachus is an old gentleman, and he met his wife when he tried to enroll to get extra money in this government study to test people for psychic abilities. Okay, it's a secret government study. And the funny thing was, his wife truly did have psychic abilities. So they marry. They go on to have a TV show appearing like on Ed Sullivan and things like that, demonstrating their different talents with their children. Irene, their daughter, is like a human lie detector. So if you told Irene a lie, she would know immediately. And it's not just from visual cues.
So it's the psychic.
She has a psychic ability.
All right.
The son, Frankie, can move objects with his mind, and it's very hard. Like he can bend a spoon if he really, really concentrates hard, that sort of a thing. But the one who has the most ability is the son called Buddy, who can see the future. And unfortunately, during one of their TV presentations, Buddy foresees the death of his mother.
Okay.
And freaks out, has like a breakdown on the TV screen,
Oh my goodness.
and everything, it just
All
falls
right.
apart. Now their children are starting to show the psychic abilities too.
So it's in the family?
It's in the family. It's very, very interesting. Think kind of X-Files meets The Sopranos, because there's mob involvement, there's all kinds of stuff, people trying to take advantage of their abilities.
All right,
and
we've
it's
only got
very
10,
funny.
we've only got 10
Okay,
minutes
we'll
left,
go
ladies.
quick.
Let's go for
I
it.
have another fiction book to recommend. It's called White Fur by Jardine Lever. This book takes place in the 80s in Manhattan, so for anyone who grew up in that time period, it's very evocative of that time, it was a very singular time in the world in New York City.
At a different time in
A
New York City.
very different time.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So a lot of robberies and
Yes,
different.
it was a
Times
different New
Square.
York
Time-
City
yeah.
than we have
It
today,
was a very
for sure.
Yes.
So this is a story, it was described by one reviewer as Less Than Zero, which I don't know if you remember that movie.
Oh
or
yeah.
which is
Oh,
like
that was a big. That
a
was his
big-
biggest book.
Exactly, big book, Bret Easton Ellis, I
That's
believe.
his first and really.
And then a movie with Robert Downey Jr. in it. So it's described as Less Than Zero meets Romeo and Juliet, which I think is actually the perfect description
Wow.
of it. This is a very young couple that meets. They're from New Haven, Connecticut. The boy is from an extremely wealthy family. The girl is not. She's from the wrong side of the tracks. They have an instant attraction and connection, and they are just completely obsessed with each other. And of course, his family wants to pull him away from her. They don't want anything to do with her, but he is just completely obsessed with her. And they end up living together in Manhattan. And the family takes extraordinary efforts to separate them. And there is ensuing drama and tragedy.
Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet in 1980s New York. It's a great beach read. It's exactly what I think of when I think about reading a book on the beach.
Great.
The next book is one of my favorites from all of these. I am a huge fan of Dennis Lehane, if you haven't read anything by him.
Oh, gosh, yes.
He wrote Mystic River and Shutter Island. This is another mystery thriller of that tradition. It's called Since We Fell. I think it's his best book yet. I read this book.
And there's a lot of those.
There's a lot of those. I read this book so quickly. I've given it to so many people to read. It's the story of a journalist, Rachel Childs, who has an on-air nervous breakdown and becomes completely agoraphobic. She will not leave her house. She does, however, have a fairly idyllic life and a wonderful husband until things start to fall apart. And she can't totally really figure out if she's being paranoid or if things are really what they seem. And it's just when you hit that point, it just runs and it doesn't stop until the very end. There is a twist right down to the last paragraph of this book. It's a great mystery thriller. I want everybody to read it.
Okay.
Now I have two more mysteries for you.
All right, we got to do these.
And this is like the Kellerman dynasty. Faye Kellerman is the wife of Jonathan Kellerman, and Faye Kellerman wrote a book called The Bone Box, and it's set in northern New York's. They call it the Five College region. Okay, and her main character, Rena Lazarus, who's a little bit too good to be true, I think. She's walking in the woods in upstate New York. She's, I think, doing photography, and she comes across human bones.
Yikes.
Okay, so her husband is a police detective, and there's this whole investigation, and it involves transgender individuals, and it involves all kinds of things, and also very strongly focuses on Orthodox Judaism. So it's a very interesting sort of a book, very different sort of a theme. But her husband, Jonathan Kellerman, also just came out with a book called Heartbreak Hotel, which is set in LA. And in this book, there is a woman named Thalia Mars, who is almost 100 years old. She's like turning 100 the next week. And she calls a very famous child psychiatrist called Alex Delaware. Now, people who follow Jonathan Kellerman's books know Alex Delaware. Okay, so why would this elderly woman call a child psychologist? Well, she's asking him to meet in her hotel suite to talk about stuff like guilt and patterns of criminal behavior and,
What, is she planning to write a book?
Obsessions in the mind and all of that sort of thing. They make an appointment to see each other again to continue the conversation, and she's murdered.
Wow.
Now, who would murder a woman who's almost 100 years old?
All right, now.
So he delves into this, and it's a wonderful, quick read.
So those are the two Kellermans?
Those are the two Kellermans.
How about you, madam?
Yes.
We're
Last two. We're down to the last two.
Good.
I actually have two recommendations for books that have not come out yet. You mentioned BEA. We're very lucky. We get advanced readers' copies. So these two books are coming out over the course of the summer. The first one is Nelson DeMille's The Cuban Affair.
Oh, Nelson DeMille is a terrific.
He's just amazing.
You can't put those books down.
You can't put them down. This is a new character for him. It's not. He's had a character that he's been writing for the last, I think, decade.
Right.
But this is a new character. His name is Daniel Mac McCormick, and it takes place in Key West and, of course, Cuba. So it's great.
Okay.
And the second one is Michael Connelly, The Late Show. Michael Connelly, again, is one of my absolute favorite. I love mystery and thriller writers. He has a great series with Harry Bosch. Harry Bosch.
I think
I've read all of them, and again, this is a new character. It's a woman. Her name, it's a female detective named Renee Ballard. She's working the night shift at LAPD, And
Great.
she usually just, the night detectives, they catch the cases and then they pass them on to the day detectives that solve them. And a case crosses her desk and she just can't let go of it. She has to solve it herself. It's wonderful.
Okay, I have a quick one because I have to talk about the Knicks. I adored this read, even though it's big and fat. I will give you a hint that they had a couple of things about gaming, and I just skipped right over those. But it was it's a 1968, going back to the protests and all kinds of things that I did, and I just really loved it. It's a young man who, when he was 11, I believe, his mother leaves. He doesn't understand why. And this whole thing is back and forth about now and then. And it's just a great read. The New York Times gave it one of the best reviews. I couldn't believe it. They called him the new Charles Dickens. And it's a first novel by Nathan Hill. If you want to really enjoy something and get into the mood of an old-fashioned read, it's really good. So I think this is terrific. Do you have any other?
Well, what we wanted to tell everybody, the viewers, is
the
about the
library.
summer reading games that are available both in the Mamaroneck Library and the Larchmont Library. The Mamaroneck Library is using the theme of Build a Better World, which is New York State's summer reading
And it's a
theme.
game.
It's like a summer reading program sort of a thing. And so we have millions, it seems like, of children's programs going on with this theme, as well as teen programs. And then in addition, we are having adult summer camp. And I know that Larchmont is doing it as well.
We're doing the same thing.
We started this last year. It was remarkably successful. And this
You
year
do
we
things
have
like all kinds
once a week we have almost like a camp craft for adults.
Pottery.
So we're doing pottery. We're doing making bath bombs. We're doing flower arranging. We're doing making chocolates. And tell us a bit what's happening in Larchmont.
Yeah.
Very similar, the same theme, Build a Better World for children and teens, and then the adult summer camp. And our program has similar activities and programs all summer, different sort of adult camp themes. We are ending with a campfire at the end of the summer.
So
Campfire and
nice.
sing along.
Oh, good.
So lots of fun happening at the libraries, and all of our programs are on our website.
I was just going to mention, if you're frantically writing down what we're talking about, and you say, oh, I missed that one, do not worry, you'll watch it on LMC-TV. The Vimeo will be on both Mamaroneck and Larchmont Library. It's so interesting. I got calls from my sister in LA, my other sister in Kansas City, my friend Susie in Florida. Everybody keeps saying, when are you going to do the beach reads? So
My board was saying the same thing.
It's just such a wonderful thing to be able to sit down with the two of you. But you don't have to just be here. You can go into the library. You have lists of books. I know you guys have been just wonderfully helpful. All of the people there, both of the libraries, they love people coming in and talking to you about them. I reserve at least a couple every week at Mamaroneck Library. I just was there picking
You're
up
a voracious reader.
I am,
Yeah,
and that's why I love this show so much. Reading and hearing from you and the enthusiasm about reading is just fantastic. And
I think we'd all love to hear feedback too.
Yes.
So, stop by the library and talk to Laura or talk to me. Tell us which ones you like.
That would be really fun. And we'll definitely get back together. I know we have programs going on, and I can't thank you both enough. I wish you happy holidays, and we'll do our holiday show again, you promise?
Absolutely.
It was wonderful.
But now we need to go back out in the sun.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
we are going
Back
to
to the
get
beach.
ready for the beach.
And take on our books, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And thank
Here we
you
go.
guys for watching out there. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed doing it. And see you next time. This is Sunny Goldberg saying bye-bye. Good reading to all of you. Bye.